All right, and welcome to another episode of Evening Crypto with your boy, the Real Shaw 256. Excited to bring you another episode of Evening Crypto here. It is Monday, September 16th, and we just had a close of the weekly candle on Bitcoin, and we also had a daily close here just recently, about 3.5 hours ago or so, actually more like 4 hours. Bringing you this episode a little bit later than usual for the typical evening crypto podcast time, but we definitely want to make sure that we get out to you with some updates. I am pretty excited about this one because, as we said on our last video we put out, is time is definitely running out for this current formation that we are in. Let's take a quick look at it. Right here, we've told you in the last episode that we are pretty darn close to being completely filled here, and then there's a big move coming out of here. So very excited to see where this will take us, quite possibly next week, as the official launch of backed futures trading platform is launched as of the 23rd. So maybe that will coincide. The 23rd is coming in right here, right where this line is. And yeah, so let's see what sort of effect that has on the price of Bitcoin. Certainly, that type of news usually has a influence on the price and the markets. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's more of the anticipation and the psychological aspect of it more than anything, and then we don't see. We will see that the price will stay the same, and eventually will break out or break down. So just want to do a quick recap of the market. As we're standing at 265 billion. Last 24 hours trading volume is 53 billion, and dominance has dropped just a tiny bit down to 69.3, the lower end of 69%. But we do see here a pretty uneven ground when it comes to what the entire crypto market is looking like. A lot of red, some green. I'd say about 80% red, maybe 20-15% green. So let's get into the chart. Let's mention something here real quick. Something that's been circling the internet around pretty much everywhere. So let's do the recap on this. So Bitcoin still bad. JP Morgan Chase traders accused of market manipulation again. So we have been hearing about this news about JP Morgan Chase traders manipulating the markets around commodities. Name it gold, silver, platinum, and a couple of other commodities for about almost or the better the better end of a decade. These the JP Morgan Chase desk has been committing fraud, spoofing, all this sort of bad and negative manipulation onto these markets, again, for the better end of 10 years. And so we see that they are being indicted for these charges recently here, as recent as I believe today, this morning, the news came out. And it leads me back to the point where we saw recently also Secretary Mnuchin coming out and saying that traditional basically defending these traditional firms, saying that the U.S. dollar is never involved in these sort of scandals, and banks and these traditional institutions are institutions to be trusted with your money, that they have a high moral ethic, and they wouldn't involve themselves in something like this. But we see it time and time again, that this is actually something that's just been repeating itself over and over and over. And I don't know about you, but I personally have lost a lot of faith, a lot of trust in traditional banking institutions such as JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Wachovia. I mean, you name it. Deutsche Bank. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We could be here all night. So I'll leave a link to this article so you guys can read it at your leisure. And then if you guys have any comments, definitely do leave them down below. Let me know what you guys think. I just thought it was pretty interesting article. There is also some news coming out of Saudi Arabia. One of their biggest rigs, and quite possibly the biggest one of the biggest rigs in oil production, was hit over the weekend by a drone attack, and it has severed severely severed the output of oil in the Middle East. So to the tune of, these guys are putting out about 5.7 million tubs of oil per day, right? So that production has been severely um, severed again, and that production is going to be really mitigated to about half, or down to 50% of its usual production. It is said that the impact of this will continue on for, it is, there is no estimation as to how long or what the extent of this damage will be, how long this big oil rig is going to be down for. So therefore, there is going to be upward pressure on the price of crude oil. Some say that it could reach as high as $100 per barrel. I That's a huge jump in my opinion. I don't know if that will be possible, but anything is possible when it comes to manipulation in traditional markets. I mean, you've come to realize that these things, there's nothing out of the reach of certain market manipulators if they so want to do something like that, or inflate the price of a commodity such as oil. All right, so I'll leave these two links down below if you guys want to continue reading them. I thought they were pretty interesting, and it does play into traditional markets, right? It does have an influence on traditional markets. Let's actually start out there. Let's take a look at the SPY and see where we're at. We actually closed above 300 again today, and so still looking pretty strong. Does look like it wants to bounce here. Let's actually bring out our handy little EMA tools here, moving averages, and for the looks of it, it looks pretty bullish, right? I mean, it's right now is being traded between the 100 simple, the 30, and the 21. There's a little bit of confluence there coming in, acting as pressure downward, but it does look like it's definitely on an uptrend. This might end up actually forming a bear flag. It kind of looks like it wants to do that and then come back and retest the 55. But I mean, overall, right now the posture is bullish. That's just a small sort of not prediction, but just kind of looking at the outlook and looking at what is currently sort of building on the chart right now. I mean, it does look like it could form sort of a bear flag, but we'll see. I mean, there's plenty of time before we could actually see that play out. So traditional markets are still looking pretty strong. Let's look at gold. As we said, gold looked like it wanted to come back, and actually, to be fair, let's look at the daily, because I believe our last video was showing the daily here, looking like it wants to come back, and yeah, I mean, look at it's sort of trading in the limbo between the 21 and the 55 here. So it does look like it might have a little bit more room to the downside before it actually starts to turn around. If we look at, again, the daily on the S&P, looks pretty bullish again, having not even coming back down to retest the 30 here, and already is looking like it wants to bounce, right? So that was today's price action. It could have been said that it would actually come back and retest the 30, but the fact that it got stopped and front ran there is looking pretty darn bullish here. I do think we could come back tomorrow and retest the high of this one here, which would be coming in at, what was the high, 302.46. It could come back and retest that by tomorrow or by the end of the week. So we'll leave it at that here. Just a quick update on traditional markets. Let's actually get into Bitcoin here to start off the night. And looking at the daily again, I mean, not a lot of price action lately. You could say the last week has been pretty boring as far as price action. I mean, coming back to this, the last time that Bitcoin moved significantly was back here on September 12th. about 4 days ago. We had this move here that was not really a whole lot. I mean, the low of it was 10,040. The high was 10,448. So I mean, not a whole lot of price action ever since, right? So I mean, it's been pretty boring. There's just more anticipation building up into the finalization of this big macro trend here, and just I think people are excited to see where this might actually end up playing out. We're actually closer to retesting this top line of resistance here, which I mean it looks better, right? Now the thing I want to see here is first off is I want to see some volume, some buying pressure if we are to go and get above this line here, this trend line here, some decisive move to the upside, breaking through these barriers and staying above them for at least get some 4-hour candle closes above that. If not, if we want to get a little more stringent, a little more exuberant with that, I'd say let's close some daily candles above this area to be convinced that we are going to actually break out of this formation here, and then that'll be confirmed. But the move was pointing to about 11,500 if we do break out of this out of this formation at current or near future prices, right? Because again, as we move on further down the line here towards the right of the chart, this descending line of resistance is coming down and pushing the price further down. So if we are to come back here, I mean the price will be, or the line of resistance will be coming in at right around 10.2, which should be, in theory, should be easier for Bitcoin to break through it. Again, we definitely want to see some volume and then closure of significant candles up above that area if we want to call a definite move. All right, so those two things is definitely something that we are waiting for. Now let's get into the lower time frames where there was a little bit of price action this morning. But talking about I want to say like 6 a.m. this morning Pacific time, we saw this dip downward. We went from about 10.3 to 10,000. What was it? What was the low in this one? 10,112 was the low of this candle here, this 4-hour candle. And then we a few hours later, we did see Bitcoin actually regaining most of that dip back. We're currently trading at 215, 10,215. And again, I mean, just a little tiny bit of action here, but not anything to really get excited about. Again, I think traders, algo traders, these bots trading the market right now, there's just not enough liquidity in here. There's just not enough buyers. I think these guys are doing the work by themselves. Not really, people aren't really, with big bags, non-algorithmic traders. Not too many of them coming in and actually trying to buy or sell into the market. I think most people, again, are waiting to see what is going to happen. So it does give way for this sort of boring trend in the market. But just a little bit of price action, just enough to kind of open up our eyes in the morning and just keep paying attention to see what would happen further. I did actually not panic because first of all, I don't know. It got stopped. I think if we were to go and revisit this area down here at about 9,900, the upper range of 9,900, at that point, I think I would have started to maybe de-risk a little bit, as it would quite potentially come back and retest some of these lows down here at around 9,400. So. And again, it could still do that, right? It could still do that. I'm not saying that we're in a safe haven right now. It could still actually come back and do that, right? Retest 94, 9,500. Although at this range, I would anticipate a buyback here at around 9,530, 9,550, right? I would anticipate a bounce right off that area. All right, that's what the lower time frames are saying. We do see here the RSI is actually again letting us know that there was a legitimate bounce here. We did briefly just skimmed the top area of the bear control zone, and we're actually retesting the 21 EMA here on the RSI 4-hour again. But I mean, we still don't see if this is going to be a rejection or if we're actually going to get above the 21 here. So we'll have to wait for the next closure of this candle. We might flatten out here a little bit, not quite a rejection, but just flatten out, and then we'll have to wait for a couple more 4-hour closes before we can kind of start to see where it might be headed in the in the shorter time frame, or like the next day or two. All right, so let's actually take a look at the 3-hour, see what the 3-hour is doing. 3 hours actually getting above, but it's already flattening out, right? And it's reflecting what we're seeing here currently. These last two 4-hour or 3-hour candles here are actually closing below the high of this one here. So it's starting to this run up or bounce is starting to fizzle out, and we do see here reflected on the RSI just trying to actually flatten out here. Not quite. So this could indicate just some more sideways trading here. Let's actually look at the 2-hour, see what the 2-hour is telling us. 2-hour is saying it actually turned back down, but it looks like it might want to flatten out here again on top of the 21. And again, these things usually will trickle up to the higher time frames. Let's look at the 1-hour here and see what the 1-hour is telling us. Yeah, flatten out. It's flattening out. So again, I mean, this just looks like more sideways trading here for the time being. Nothing too exciting. I do think this descending line of resistance is having some sort of pressure downwards, as we do see here. Actually, let's look at the micro trend within the macro trend here, if that makes any sense to you guys. Hopefully it does. There's a descending line of downward pressure there, and then we also have this right here. So this actually here is, I mean, somewhat worrisome, right? Because these formations here usually typically will break to the downside here, as opposed to what we're seeing in the macro trend. Let's actually get to the 4-hour. That way it's easier to tell, right? See the difference there? This is more of a we have a bigger angle on the line of support, and then a flatter top, right? So again, these sort of formations usually break down, not break out, right? So but again, we'll see. That's just an indicator. It's, in my opinion, it's too soon to even tell. That's again, I might be jumping the gun here a little bit, just trying to figure out what we're gonna do here. Okay. But initially, I do think we're going to find support here. We could come back and retest this area here at around 10,100 and have a bounce there and just trade within this range here. This narrowing channel here, and just again more of the same, and lack of liquidity, also lack of volatility here. So the trading opportunities are going to be quite diminished here for the next week or so. Although let's talk about this here, because we have been seeing something with Ethereum in the last week or so. Ethereum is actually looking stronger as of the last week. Actually having a nice bounce off of this low here at around, what is this? The low was 165 even, and just having a nice reaction to that previous area of support. And it is rallying currently. I mean, it's kind of a gradual, slow upward trend here on the 4-hour. Again, we're right up against the 377, huge area of resistance here. If we do break above it, I do think we're going to come back and retest some previous areas like this here. Where are we out right now? We're at 196.63. This area here will be the next area of interest. If we can get above this area here, and consequently at around, what is this, 203 and a quarter. So 203 and a quarter, if we can get above that, then the next area here coming in is going to be about 216. Somewhere in between there, looks like we could actually come back actually fizzle out here, somewhere in between these two targets here, 203, about 203 and a quarter, and about 216. I know it's kind of a wide range, but there's just nothing stopping it. Once we get above 203, there's going to be very little stopping it up until about 216. Let's actually put a measured move here. If you were to get in right now, as we're doing the video, to the first target, that's about 3%. And if we go from that line to about 216, that's an additional 6.2. So, I mean, this move could still have about almost 10% worth of price action here if you want to enter a trade. I mean, it's not financial advice, of course. This is just, I'm actually tinkering with the idea of doing that a little late into the trade, but hey, 10% is nothing to shake a stick at. I would actually not be opposed to doing so. I just want to make sure that I do get in at the right time. I do think this looks like it comes back and retests this area of support here at 194.50. And if we do get a bounce off of that area, we do have the 30 coming in right there also as support. So if we do get a bounce off of that area, I do think, again, we're going to very likely come back and retest 203, right? And again, that would be a little bit over 3% move if you guys want to do that. RSI is looking very, very darn strong. I mean, just getting above the 21 and staying above it. We've actually retested a couple of times at least. So this move, again, we could see it come back and retest. This is looking like this could be the move to end it all at 3%, just depending on what happens here. Again, yeah, we do have a little bit of a bearish divergence here. Yeah, we do have a little bit here. Look at this top here and look at this top here. We have a higher top. I'll show you what I'm talking about from top to top. And then we have a descending top on the RSI. So a little bit of bearish diversions. We actually could, if this does play out, we're looking at the 4 hours, so that has a little bit of significance going into the day tomorrow. So we could see this play out and actually come back and definitely retest to 194. And if we break down from it, we do have the 21 and 30 here, but that would be, if we do come back and retest these prior areas, the 30 to 21, then that would be this actually is playing out. All right, so just something to watch out for here in the shorter term, right? In the shorter term, so nothing to really get too worked up about yet. It just means that we could come back and retest these prior lows here. The 200 is coming in here at around, what is this, 187.08. This could also be a nice area for a bounce as well. We also have a previous pivot high there coming in at that same region in confluence with that. So we're going to change that to green, so that represents our support line. All right, so yeah, again, it looks like it could come back and retest this area before we actually play out and fizzle out on this move here at 203, quite possibly not ruling this out, 215, 216 range. All right. Okay, so just want to put that out there for you guys. Again, not financial advice, just letting you what I'm going to do, letting you know what I'm looking at as far as trades goes. I did let you in on some scalp trades over the weekend. Let me know if you guys took any of that, and leave it down in the comments as always. XRP, just still a boring chart, not something I really want to trade. There's better opportunities elsewhere. Looking at other charts, yeah, I mean, just not anything that just nothing that looks exciting to me at all or interested in trading at the moment. Maybe down the line, maybe in a couple weeks or something, maybe that changes. But let's see, looking at BNB, holding this area here at around, what is this, $19.79, holding that area nicely, having a second bounce. We could come back and see and look at this. This actually is looking. This is an altcoin, right? These two, we're looking at altcoins, and look at the way they be look at the way that Ethereum is behaving at the moment. Let's see if we can catch it. Now let's go back down to the 4 hour. There's something interesting I want to show you here.
Let's actually take it from bottom to bottom. It's a rising rising bottom or higher low here for the first time. Then we do see here Ethereum running up after that to the tune of about 20%. Right, from the point where we cemented our first higher low, and then we went 20% above that. So let's see, BNB is actually kind of looking like it wants to do the same thing here, looking like it wants to set a higher low as well. So it means that it could quite potentially has found a bottom for the time being, and we do have a nice bounce out of that area. So we'll be looking out for that. Let's keep an eye on it and see where it goes. So let's look at Link real quick. Link is looking quite similar to BNB, and this one actually looks a bit more dramatic, right? Although there's two things to pay attention to here. The first one will be, yeah, we did set a higher low, but on the top range of this formation, let's get rid of these moving averages so it looks cleaner, painting sort of a bear flag. So there's a little bit of contradicting information here. Let's actually look at BNB, see if it's doing the same thing. Nope, actually not doing the same thing. If anything, it looks like a triangle or a descending wedge. And I would put a little bit more weight on this formation actually playing out to the upside. I do think we're going to see some sideways trading within this channel here, and then a breakout. Certainly, if we do see Bitcoin sideways trading, as long as Bitcoin does not dip to the tune of 3 to 5, 6, maybe 10% in the next week or so, I do think we're going to go sideways here for a little bit, and then eventually break out of this and then retest some of these previous areas here. Let's actually put some areas of interest here. Let's actually paint this one red, since it is going to act as resistance. That way you guys keep track of these color coordinated milestones, if you will, right here. All right, so these will be the next two areas, the next two targets to pay attention to if this does play out. All right, so just a little bit of homework for you guys if you guys are paying attention and want to get in on some of these trades. Now, Litecoin is actually looking like a little bit like Ethereum. Not quite as strong as Ethereum is looking at the moment, but look, same behavior here. Let's actually draw it out for you guys again. I mean, I know it's kind of repetitive, but I definitely want to make sure that I leave this out for you guys. So definitely doing a setting a higher low and then bouncing quite nicely off of it. Okay, and obviously this is looking like an ascending channel. Now, this more so than Ethereum, this more so looks like a potential bear flag. So a little bit of a warning sign there. Some contradicting information here. It does look like a sort of a bear flag. I don't know how much weight you guys put in on these things, but it makes you, at least it makes you aware of what might happen. Don't play the formation, play the price action. Again, because these formations don't always play out, especially if we do see a breakout on Bitcoin, then this could just be something that the algos and bots are painting purposely on the charts, right? So pay attention to that. RSI is actually looking pretty bullish right now. Did have a bounce off the 21 here. It does look like it wants to continue upwards here into the retest of the bullish control zone here at the top of this range here. Look at that. We tried it once, failed, twice, failed. Let's see if the third time we can actually get above it. Which again, the more we come back and retest these areas here, the weaker that resistance or support becomes. Right? If we're constantly testing the bottom area of support, and that will weaken and eventually break. Same here. If we're coming back and retesting the top line of resistance here, that eventually will weaken out and we will actually get above it, right? So, all right, so pay attention to those things. Let me know what you guys are thinking and doing. Love to hear from what you guys are doing this week as far as trades. Do you have any interesting setups? Leave it down in the comments. Love to chat about it, and then we'll get on that on the next video. We'll talk about it if you are doing something interesting. All right, so just want to get in here, do a very quick update on the charts, and again, looking forward to this week and the next coming days to see what actually ends up playing out, and hopefully you guys are too. Are paying attention. Let me know how you guys are preparing for that. Again, we've been in this trend since June officially, and just excited to see what comes next after this move. All right, guys. So leave it down in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. Definitely follow me on Twitter at TheRealShaw256. And don't forget to like the video. If you did get something in return for your time this evening, definitely hit the subscribe button there and the bell notification so you do get notified when I do put out the content. All right, guys. Have a great night. We'll see you on the next video. Thanks.